Let's get down to business. Quick bit here on Resident Evil's live action movie. Oh my goodness. It released in 2002. Literally, they had no excuse to do what they did with this movie, honestly. But as I go through all these Resident Evil movies, these live action Resident Evil movies, I will talk about how they could have transitioned from the games to movies. So basically, Resident Evil 2002 is some random story. As of 2002, they had Resident Evil 1, which was 1996, Resident Evil 2, 1998, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, 1999, and Resident Evil Code Veronica, 2002. Resident Evil 0 released later 2002, so I understand if that's off limits. But they had all those stories, all those characters, Claire, Jill, Barry, Rebecca, Chris, Leon, Wesker, literally anyone from Alpha Team, all that, all of them were thought as useless to tell this story. The fact that they discarded every logical aspect of Resident Evil makes this project and every other project that came after a passionless money grab. Because you use this name, literally, call it bioweapon, biohazard, bioshock. Literally, call it anything, just don't call it Resident Evil. But let's get down to the nitbits of this. So this movie follows a woman who has amnesia, of course. The amnesia thing, honestly, how many times are we going to do this, though? How many times are we going to do this with this amnesia thing? How many? Just how many? I'm asking. How many? So we learn everything with her. That's a plot device to get the audience engaged in this character because we know it's not Jill. We know it's not Claire. So they have to make us care about her. So they're like, okay, we got to actually pay attention because she doesn't know anything either. The story happens right away, which I like. Look, they could have had a good series here somewhere among this mess if they called it literally anything else. Like I said, Stories of Raccoon City, Evil Resident, or how about Biohazard? Honestly, I think it's hilarious, by the way. Resident Evil 7 is called Biohazard. So in Japan, is it called Biohazard? Someone please tell me in the comments. Anyway, the soldiers plop in. Their token black man is there. Some white people and Rain. The only soldier I like is Rain, honestly. The only one. No one else is there long enough for me to care, really. This movie is the only acceptable live action movie. The liquor, the virus, the zombies, we're good. Alice is a mix of like 4 characters. She's a mix of Ada Wong, Claire Redfield, Rebecca Chambers, and Jill. Literally. So they go into the hive, which is like where the outbreak happened. Like this is kind of like a prequel to what happens in Raccoon City. I'll talk about it in Apocalypse, which is number 2. But they go into the hive where all the people were and they died and whatnot. The world building is pretty amazing. Sadly, it's definitely not like the games. It's got its own identity to a point. Literally, this one particular movie alone has its own identity, which is why I don't understand why they went in the direction they did. Maybe at the time they got people confused and angry that Jill wasn't in there and Leon and all that, but honestly, it took them like 6 movies to get Leon in there, so whatever. Literally everybody else was put in there before Leon, and I think that's hilarious. Like, around this time in the movie is where the problems start arising. Problem 1. Spence shouldn't have had amnesia as well. He could have just been secretly pretending or like something. He didn't need amnesia as well. I'll give a pass on Alice for having amnesia, okay? She can have amnesia or whatever, but Spence definitely should not have had amnesia. Alice could have been like the only one to have amnesia because she's the one that we're supposed to be like insert self, I guess. But dude, Spence was fresh off I Know What You Did Last Summer type camp, honestly. It's just like, what on earth? He's super jarring, and everyone talks about it. Everyone who talks about these movies talks about how Spence is like hamming it up. It's just like, literally, just get somebody else. Just get somebody else. I know that it wouldn't be the same without him, without all these aspects, like Matt being just like literally like a block of wood. Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy has more personality than him. And then you've got the mix between Alice being stoic and being able to identify when she's supposed to look like she's fearful. Problem 2, way too many characters. Most do die in the laser room. But if the only purpose for them is to die and make the main characters feel like they're in danger, I guess I get it. But they shouldn't have all died there. Like, some people die from zombies, but maybe one of them shoots another, and that's why we have a problem. Like, I shouldn't have to make your movie for you, but I just feel like there's a big problem with how many people died in the laser room. Really? 2 people should have died in the laser room. Like 4, I think, died in there. I don't remember, but the next one, like I said, problem 3, Matt is he's got too much, just, even when his sister dies, he's just like, like, okay, dude. Problem 4, the Red Queen. Why didn't she just release a gas to kill everyone? But I get what she brings to the table, honestly. She's like the villain for the most part. I like the dilemma the Red Queen adds to the story, but I just feel like there was a missed opportunity for it. It just seems like, yeah, there can be an argument made that because AI was made by man, that's the big issue, is man. But in the end, it's supposed to be directly an AI reference where AI is dangerous and is man's enemy. But I really think that has literally nothing to do with Resident Evil. Resident Evil is very heavily based on humanity's flaws, and the AI aspect of her being the end-all be-all villain. It would be one thing if one of the people, like that guy that was messing with the controls, maybe he's like a part of it and started the Red Queen. I just feel like the Red Queen should not have been a villain at all. The Red Queen should have been an obstacle. And she is an obstacle and a villain because she comes back later. And Alice is like, we meet again, like she's her enemy, when the enemy should have been one of the people that were helping them. He should have been like, I'm saving us. We can't. And then that's when that person dies, and then they get out of there. And then they have to contend with the Red Queen. That's just how I would have made it if we have to include the Red Queen. Problem number 5, the liquor really should have been far more scarier because, like, we see it in the beginning. It's kind of like they treat it like a tyrant, when liquors are kind of like they didn't even really play on the fact that they're blind. They just added it an enemy, you know? It's not like an enemy that kind of makes sense for the situation. It's just let's just put a boss situation. Let's just put a boss thing. Like, they don't even really care about what the liquor brings to the table, how they're blind. Like in Apocalypse, which I will discuss in my next video, the liquors, they have more of what makes them what they are, and they have to go around that, like, okay, they have to be quiet because they know they're blind. But in this one, the liquor is just another obstacle, just like the Red Queen. It serves no purpose that it served in the games. I actually was kind of upset that Matt was infected by the liquor. I think Matt should have actually just probably been infected by Spence, and I think Spence should have been like a boss issue. And maybe even Matt's sister could have been a tyrant. But there's no tyrant. The only tyrant we get technically is Nemesis in Apocalypse, but the liquor serves the purpose of what a tyrant would have served the purpose of. But I know that they had to use a certain enemy, because if it was a hunter, hunters are too overpowered. They can see, and they've got claws, and they can jump, and everything's terrible. Banner Snatcher makes no sense for this scenario. Banner Snatchers were made accidentally. I personally believe that they were made accidentally. They're obsolete. There's only one arm that works. They're not something that they were like trying to make bunch of. It was just people who got injected and their arm fell off. But aside from that, I understand why they chose the liquor for this first enemy, but I don't like it. They could have sat down a little longer and figured that out. Like I said, Matt's sister should have been the tyrant, like, oh, serves you right for getting information from Alice. She could have been punished by being put in the tyrant program. And that would have leaned into Matt, her brother, being in the Nemesis program. But that's just me. And then Spence should have been like a Crimson Head or something. He should have ran. And that's when that dude should have been attacked. The guy who got eaten up by the liquor. Like, they literally do this thing where Alice is like, it's not hidden. It's not hidden that all these people are supposed to die by the end of the movie. Even though that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hide points behind the story so that we don't straight up see, okay, yeah, we know Rain's gonna die. We know everyone's gonna die. We shouldn't even get... I hate Doom movies. And if this is going to be a Doom movie, don't set it up to be one. Make it seem like, okay, maybe there's some hope that we're going to get out alive. That boy getting eaten by that liquor is just like, okay, I expected that because it's like everyone dies. Like, it would have been better if not a lot of people died in the laser room. Like I said before, if less people died in the laser room, I would have felt less like this is a Doom movie where no one survives. And with all my Resident Evil reviews, when I talk about the games, I have 10 specific things that a Resident Evil game should have. So I'm going to use those 10 things, and if they don't apply, like gameplay and whatnot, I'm not really going to talk about it much. But here's the list of the 10 things that all Resident Evil games / movies should have if they're applicable. Number 1, horror. The blood and gore make the movie scarier for the time, like, of the graphics, you know. They're obviously outdated, but I like how they brought the liquor to life, the zombies to life. There's this cinematography thing that they use where it's like blurry and all that, and I hate that because it's like takes away from what the people did. I know it's supposed to add the sense of like an eerie sense and a hazy sense, but it's just super annoying when I see people work so hard on makeup just for them to just barely be able to be seen. There was this show that was on Sci-Fi called Face Off, and it was where people who did the stuff that you see in movies with the makeup. I thought it was really cool, and they just lost the funding for the show, so they never did it again. And I was kind of upset because it's like people still need those people. So you'd think that they would want to basically use that. Like Gordon Ramsay uses almost all of his shows to hire people for jobs and stuff. They basically did that with Face Off. People who won Face Off or who were really good on Face Off, they were hired for jobs to be in movies. I thought it was really cool. So that gets a check. The horror, I consider the horror to be there for this one. 2, puzzles. Technically, the puzzles aren't called puzzles, but they're there. The first is the laser room, which guess what? Resident Evil 4, bootleg, loser, good for nothing, scrub game, takes from this old movie. Like, I think it's interesting. Yeah, it was 2004, 2002, whatever. 2 years after that, Leon just so happens to be in a laser room. Interesting. I don't think that would have happened if this movie hadn't been made. So literally Resident Evil 4 is just an amalgamation of straight up everything that is memorable from everything else. And that's what makes it so memorable. People love to talk about how Resident Evil 4 saved the series, when in all reality, a lot of people only like Resident Evil for literally the gameplay. Not the story, not Ashley Graham, not Leon and Ada Wong's relationship, not Krauser, not even Wesker, who was shoehorned in there literally like with Ada's story, because people were like, why does Ada get to come in and come out? Why can't we play as Ada? Okay, DLC. But I digress. I'm not here to crap on Leon today. I already did that the other day. I would say the Red Queen is also a puzzle. I'm reaching a bit, but an argument can be made for it. I would say, yeah, the puzzles check out for this game, for this movie. Number 3, backtracking. Yes, they go back through to get out, so check. Number 4, tyrant. There should have been a tyrant. Like I said, maybe Matt's sister, Alice, was informing. That could have been her punishment. The liquor is literally turned into a tyrant later on. A tyrant type enemy, being the stalker as well as the starting in a tube-like thing, like Resident Evil 1 did. So I would have to say it does not pass the tyrant test. Different perspectives, yes. The story starts with Spence leaking the virus and turns it to Alice's perspective. We follow Matt for a moment, who basically is Steve Burnside by Apocalypse, because he, spoiler, is Nemesis. It's not really a spoiler because I want him in the Nemesis program. What does that mean other than that? What does that mean other than that? We knew he was going to be like that whole realization where she's like, oh my goodness, Matt, I want him in the Nemesis program. That you straight up told us. Literally, it would have been interesting if Matt actually just was taken away and they didn't say, I want him in the Nemesis program. Literally, it would have been a better twist if you would have just let him freaking go on that trolley and go. We didn't need to hear, I want him in the Nemesis program. Why did we need to hear that? I would say different perspectives, it checks off for a small bit. 6, zombies, viruses, BOWs. The enemies were really cool to me for the time. I would give it a check. Number 7, corporations, anti-capitalism. Yeah, this is seen through Alice's betrayal, Spence's greed, Matt's concern, and the soldier's objective. Plus, number 8, gameplay. We can skip this one, like I said, but it seems like a gunslinger type movie. Like, it for all the movies that are made from games, this is a good standalone. Standalone. By standalone, I mean don't talk about Nemesis. You could talk about Umbrella, because Umbrella, this can be a story separate from who we know. Jill, Chris, Leon, Claire. This could have been happening simultaneously. Like I said before, I do believe they should have made Ethan's story take place around similar times so that everyone would be around the same age, instead of making Chris age like about 50 years and then meet Ethan or whatever. So I'm just like, whatever. It's a whatever on that one because gameplay doesn't count. 9, continuity. Literally is irrelevant. This is a reimagining. It's not a reboot. It's not a remake because it's not using enough of the source material. So I would give that one an X. Number 10, overall story. Does it stand alone? It does. It stands alone really well. This one and this one alone. Not Apocalypse, not Extinction, not Afterlife, not Half-Life, not none of that. This one stands alone very well. I would have had more respect for this movie if it ended right here. No more Alice, no more anything, just it ended right here. And then we know what happens because we've played the games. Freaking scrubs. Those were the 10 things: horror, puzzles, backtracking, tyrant, different perspectives, zombies, virus, BOWs, corporations, gameplay, continuity, and overall story. Those are the things that I will be using to look at these Resident Evil movies, series, and all whatnot. I'll give a synopsis like I did a little bit, and I'll grade it based on this, okay? Overall, like I said, it's the most successful movie, as it seems to keep a good face as a semi-makeshift mutated reboot without relying a lot on the original lore to function, right until they say they want Matt in the Nemesis program. This movie is a 7 out of 10 movie, a 1 out of 10 if we're like taking into consideration the fact that it's like basically trying to get people in the seats just because it says Resident Evil. So you can take whichever one of those you want. I give it a 7 out of 10 being a movie on its own, but if you don't want to separate it, it's a 1 out of 10. That's how I feel about it. Not here to read Alice when she's, as of 2002 and 2002 alone, done nothing really wrong against any of the other Resident Evil characters. The actress has been through a lot. I don't blame her. I blame the writers, directors, and executive producers. I blame her husband for trying to put her in this movie and not making a movie that has nothing to do with something that's already existing. And honestly, like I said, the Mary Sue doesn't exist. The Mary Sue doesn't exist. They are just female protagonists. Duh. They're going to be better than everybody else. Duh. When did Harry Potter get good at spells when he's never doing classwork? The Chosen One can be poorly written, but saying that poorly written character is a Mary Sue has to end, honestly. Just say it's poorly written. If you don't have words to say what you're trying to say, and the only thing that you can vomit at your orifice is Mary Sue, then just don't talk about it at all. The E-Boys complain at everyone for everything they create in the end, honestly. All these, oh, I'm not like other girls, literally came about because guys were like, oh, well, girls are like this. Girls are XYZ. And both men and women out there, if you keep dating the same personality type, it's your taste in your relationship partners, not what everyone is. So if you date a girl that, oh, they're all like this, then maybe stop dating girls that are all like that. Scrub. And with that, I'm done. Like and subscribe. Let's have a conversation about this, honestly. I'm like kind of bored with these movies. These movies, I'm not going to really have a lot of energy talking about these movies because they just like drain my energy so much. I'll be happier to talk about the animated movies aside from Vendetta because it's like gross. And I even saw a bit of what they were going to do in Vendetta in Darnation. So I'm just like, whatever. Tell me your favorite movie, like favorite live action movie and your least favorite live action movie. Keep an eye out on my Twitch because I will be streaming Apex Legends and Resident Evil 0 throughout the week. So watch out for those. Hope you have a good day. I'm just so over these movies. I have nothing against Mila, whatever her last name is. Kulovich, I think. I just hate Alice. But as of this movie only, she's done nothing wrong or against any of the Resident Evil characters, aside from just being a collaboration of characters we actually like. Done. Watch this dude right here.